Hello, hello, welcome. Welcome to Astro together. We're together. Oh my God, thank you. Montreal, thank you for having us here in this beautiful city. Thank you for welcoming us here. This is our first ever live in-person event, and what a way to celebrate. This is just so cool. Shout out to our sponsors, Sentry. They're in the back there. Storyblocks in the back. We've got some people from Netlify, the Solid.js team. Glauber himself from Terso is here. They're in the back. Got an awesome community that we brought together for this event, and I am so excited to get started. My name is Fred K. Schott. I'm one of the co-creators of Astro. And later tonight, we're going to have all these great people come up here on stage showing off everything from Astro 4.10, Starlight, Astro Actions, a really cool new feature, and just everything across the community. And I'm going to come back up and share something about the future of Astro that I'm very excited to talk about. Sound good? Let's do it. All right. For anyone here who just wandered in from the street, Astro is the web framework for content-driven websites. If you're building a landing page and you need some speed, if you've got a blog juggling lots of content and SEO, a documentation website like Microsoft or WP Engine, or maybe you're a news deliverer like NBC or The Guardian. Whatever you're doing on the web, if you're working with content, Astro is a web framework designed for you. Now, it's been an exciting couple of years as we've gotten this project started, but we already have over 50,000 monthly active developers, just like all of you, using Astro to build beautiful content experiences that are fun to develop and also fast and easy to use as a user. Now, we're only 3 years old, but our real-world adoption is already off the charts. Oh, I'm so sorry. I won't do that again, I promise. No, this is, of any of the web frameworks of the last 5 years, Astro is far and away the fastest growing, highest adopted framework using real-world data across the Google and HTTP archive surveys of the top 10 million sites. This is real-world adoption, showing no signs of slowing down. But adoption's nice. We also care about performance. Happy to report on that regard, we are also knocking it out of the park. We are by far the best performing web framework. So whatever you're building, Core Web Vitals, they're super important for not just SEO, but conversion rates, bounce rates, e-commerce sales. Every fraction of a second matters when you're building on the web. And so we built Astro not just to be flashy and fun to use, but also to be fast, to start out fast and stay fast. And that's what we've delivered here. And again, I think the real-world data speaks for itself. Please help me in with welcoming for our first speaker, the CEO of Whiteboards himself, Mr. Ben Holmes, to talk about actions.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the warm welcome, and Fred for the warm welcome. Well, is everyone ready to take action? Ready for actions? Are you ready for Astro action? Perhaps. There we go. Those are some plans, but we'll take it. All right. So as Fred mentioned, Astro is the framework for building content websites. We started that journey with MDX, which is everyone's favorite way to write local content with Markdown, bringing in your favorite components, React, Vue, Svelte, Solid, whatever you like. And over time, we've been improving the build times, reducing it by seconds, by minutes, as Matthew will show soon. And all of that has probably built the best way to use MDX in any web framework. And from there, we expanded to content collections, where we help you organize your content, and we check your front matter with type checking, so you can catch errors before you ship to production. From there, we decided to work on images. Every website has assets, but you don't want to upload to tiny JPEG and pull it back down. No, you want to take that original file, plop it in your assets folder, and let the framework optimize to find the right sizes and formats for the site that you're building. It's built in, it's super easy to use. So in a way, we've kind of solved static content. But from here, it is time to talk about dynamic content. Because your website doesn't stop with static posts. You're making like buttons, you're making comment widgets, you're adding user authentication flows. And we wanted to help you on that part of the journey as well. We started with AstroDB, which makes data simple. You can scaffold out a simple SQLite database with our very easy DSL. And then you can start up your dev server, which creates a local database file. No need for API keys. You can play around with it however you like. And when you're ready to push up to production, run db push. We have migrations built in, and you're ready to ship anywhere in the world. Now, we want to expand that with Astro Actions, which makes data and the backend that talks to it simple as well. We'll be honest, the bar was low coming into this. If you've used Astro before, you know that you're just dealing with, request response patterns. This is using the platform, but sometimes the platform is really hard. You can see here, this is all the code that I had to write just to make sure that JSON was actually the shape that I expected before I could even talk to my database. You shouldn't have to do this. You should not have to do this for every single endpoint on your website. I'm glad you felt that pain before. So from there, what do we want if we know what the bad looks like? Well, first off, we want something that's totally type safe. Yes, Matt Pocock, we know. We want something where you can just write a function on your server, and you can call it from the client with the exact same name, the same inputs, same outputs, all just using JavaScript. When you command-click in your editor, you should jump right to the server implementation. No magic file paths or fetch calls to remember. In the process, though, it should never be possible to leak server code into someone's browser. If you use fancy solutions like RPCs, server actions, you can import server code straight into the client. And this can be a little bit tricky. You might need to protect sensitive code with taint object reference and server only. In a way, you're kind of protecting your code from the framework. But really, the framework should be protecting you. It should be impossible to leak server stuff onto the client while still getting all those benefits that we were talking about earlier. That was a key principle while we were designing. The last one, make form data easy. I'll give you an example you've probably seen. You have an input, you're taking in text, and the name is name. To get that on the server, you're just calling formdata.get using the platform. But when you're actually getting the results, that's not type safe. You need to check if it's defined. And if it's not, maybe you return some sort of error code. But then you're still getting like 200 status codes. This isn't GraphQL. We want something that actually uses the platform a little bit more. So you might go from there and try to, return an error or throw. But then you're parsing errors on the client, you're dealing with messages. That can be, ironically, error prone. So we wanted to, make it a little bit simpler. And you might get clever and say, oh, I'll just convert it to an object, wrap it with my favorite validator, Zod, whatever I happen to be using, and it works fine for strings. But then you get to more exotic inputs, like you have number fields, and you pass it through your validation function. You expect a number to come out the other side, and it turns out it's a string. It's not a number. And you got to make sure you parse that and pass it through appropriately. Then you get to checkboxes. Surely these are just booleans. They're on, off. We're just, toggling stuff. I see a person shaking their head. They know this is not a boolean. It's a string with the value on. Yuck, that doesn't make any sense. It should just be a Boolean, because that's what we're expecting in our code. So I'm happy to say that form parsing is built into what we're building. It helps you validate your strings, your numbers, Booleans, arrays, even files. All of it using Zod, APIs you're familiar with, and we'll demo that in a moment. Now, show of hands. Are there any React users in the audience? Who uses React? Okay, that's a decent amount. Yes. Well, I'm excited to say, if you've been hearing about React 19, it is available day one in Astro. All the features you've been seeing on Twitter, they are here. They are here. Yes. Yes. And that is really awesome if you're working with forms and form actions. You can see, if you want to set up an action, you don't have to do onSubmit and prevent default anymore. You can just pass an action straight to a form. It's so intuitive. And if you wanted to, handle pending states, you can call useFormStatus. That'll give you your loading indicator. And if you want to actually get the data out with progressive enhancement, you can call useActionState, and that will return the value. So all of that built in. If you're wondering, are you all ready to redefine the backend? You ready for a demo? A little code demo? Okay. I like it. Let's head over to our coding screen. Yes, here we have our example. I'm going to show y'all the best website on the internet, my personal site. We all know. Yes, I've written this up as just a blog using Astro content collections, an API you might be familiar with to parse Markdown, and I wanted to make it a little bit more interesting. Because yes, I have this post here, but I want it to be interactive. I want to add, a like button that you can click on to show your support, maybe a newsletter to sign up. And you can see right now I have this really nice looking button set up with Tailwind, but it doesn't actually talk to a server. There's no way to know how many people are liking this post around the world. So of course, we're going to need a database. We'll be using AstroDB for that piece. And we also need a backend to update that value, which is the perfect use case for Astro Actions. You can see here I have that like button implemented. And to show y'all this really works anywhere, I'm going to be using a script tag and a web component. Don't boo. Don't boo. I know. OK, I get it. But we're just going to show off some very simple APIs. Don't worry too much about the syntax up here. All you need to worry about is this toggle like, which gets called every time you click on the button inside of this web component. You can see it's persisting to local storage, but from here, we also want to back up the database value. To start on our backend journey, I'll create a new file here called actions. You can see here it's in source actions index.ts. This is where all of your actions are exported from, but you're free to define your actions any file, and as long as they barrel through this server export, you're ready to use them anywhere in your code base. Since I'm doing a simple first-time action, I'll just be doing it inside of this file. We'll call it like, and you can define a new action using the define action utility. You see this is coming from Astro::actions. This is where all of the imports live when you're using and defining your actions, as we'll be showing off here. The first thing it takes in is a handler, and this accepts both the values that you expect as well as the full API context. So if you wanted to get headers, cookies, authentication middleware, everything that a full endpoint does, it's there. You didn't lose any functionality. But if you want the nice version, it's also over here with the parsed body. And if you want to actually validate the input, you can call on a little input validator. And this uses Zod. So if we wanted to take in JSON, for example, we want to accept whether you like the post and the post slug, we'll create an object right here. And first, we might want to take whether or not you have liked the post, and also a post slug. We will make this a string. And just to show y'all a little Zod power, you might want to refine the result a little bit. This is a nice little check that you can do with Astro's content APIs. Take in the slug, make sure it exists in your directory of blog post. If it returns true, then it's ready to pass through. And if it's any other bad value, it'll bounce it with a 400 bad request. So as soon as you get to the actual code you want to write, you know that that is a valid object that's ready to use. No worries about if statements or anything like that. From here, though, we know that we're ready to talk to our database. So I'll add an insert statement here. You're not going to watch me write SQL live, Globber. I know you wanted me to. But we'll use a ready-made example. We're going to be doing an upsert on a table I have prepared called post. And this is going to track the likes on a given post by the slug. We'll insert a new value if we're not tracking that post yet. Or we'll update it likes +1, likes -1, depending on what you've passed in. Then we'll return the new likes so we can update that counter in the browser. I'll also go ahead and add a little bit of safety to this. Since this is on the public internet, we're not using logins or anything. I'm just going to add a rate limiter. This is going to use Redis behind the scenes, not super important. The part that you do want to check out, though, is this action error. This is how you can define exceptions on your actions. So in this case, we wanted to say there's too many requests, and we want to return a type-safe error. And you can see right here, it's hard to remember status codes. You don't know what the number 429 is doing. So we gave you a little bit of training wheels that gives you all of the actual human readable names. And these will generate the number for you. So you don't have to remember that bit. Now we have everything set up. We have our success and our error. We're ready to talk from our like button. To import an action, you can import into any bit of client-side code. I will just go ahead and import actions.like. And you can see actions is an object that comes from Astro::actions as well. And we can click on .like. Coming through here, you see those type safe values. We're pulling in the types straight from there. No code gen or anything. It's just coming right through. And we can pass down these values that we have configured. I have liked and post slug both being tracked, so I'll set those here. Post slug. And now we're ready to call our action. If you want to actually get the result, you can just say, const likes equals whatever, and that will give you the number. That's all you got to do. Now that we're set up, we can, check on our server logs, make sure this thing is firing off as we expect. So I'll go ahead and click on that button a couple times, and heading over to our logs, you can actually see a very debuggable post request right there. So you can see 200, it's working fine. And you also see the name of the action/like. If you're checking out server actions or other things, it's this big scary hash code and you don't know where it came from. This is actually gonna be the name. So if you're looking in your server logs, like why did this exception happen? You actually know, it's right there. And we'll also check out that rate limiter just to see our error firing off. So I'll click on it a whole bunch of times. Oh my God, I don't love. And you can see there, now our 429 start streaming through. That means too many requests. You gotta slow down for the day. You might be a bad actor, We might add authentication if we wanna go all the way from there. Now, let's actually update the counter. We saw that it was staying where it was. If we wanted to get the result, you can just get the likes if you want to, or if we wanna handle that rate limiter issue, we don't want it to throw anymore, we can call .safe. And this will create an object that has both data or an error. If you've used React Query or something like that, it's kind of similar. You can see data is going to have the likes, and error is going to have that action error. So you can match on codes. You can even get form data fields and specific errors with types. It's really nice. And if we want to, parse out the error, we can check if it exists and log out a little message like, too many requests, slow down there. Otherwise, just say something went wrong. And we know with that error check that data must exist. Types are smart enough to say that. So we can safely down here set to the data.likes if we knew all those errors are working appropriately. We head back over here and you can see the slow down there message appears right away. We've been rate limited. Or if we head back over and comment it out in developer mode, we know what we're doing. We can hop over here and now, sure enough, we see our likes incrementing and decrementing. Yes, wow, a number going up and down. I can't believe it. It's everyone's favorite demo. Okay. So we've figured out how to call an action. We figured out JSON, web components. What about forms? What about React 19? You need something you can put on Twitter in a week. So let's look down here. We have our whiteboardist newsletter. And this is, a place for you to sign up for a post. You can put in your email, whether or not you want music recommendations. I might as well just jam this to always be on, because why would you turn that off? And then you can hit subscribe, and it will send off to my button-down newsletter. But I don't want to redirect to button down and come back. It's a little sloppy. So I'm going to make an action that proxies request over to button down, and then lets me handle some really nice banners for feedback. We'll head over to our actions file again, and we'll implement that function right here. We have subscribed to newsletter, and this is another new action that's taking in an input. It looks exactly the same as our button example. Email is a string, and music recs is a Boolean. The one interesting part is accept form. This lets you pass in form data instead of JSON. And Astro will smartly go through the form data object. It'll see, oh, we need to get the string value. And then for music recs, that's a Boolean. We're going to make sure it has that entry instead so you don't run into any type issues. And down here again, type safe values, pass them off to button down with a simple fetch request, and we'll handle a couple error cases just to be complete, have a conflict status code if you're already subscribed, and then a generic one if you haven't. Success true if everything goes okay. I'll save that, and I'll plug this into my React component. I have this readily prepared here, newsletter.tsx, and this is what y'all came for. Use action state, the new API in React that helps you call a backend function and get the result back to use in your app. You can see here, you get the pending state. So if you want a little loading indicator while that action is off in the ether, you can display it there. And state is going to give you that result as soon as it comes through. And this is the initial value of state if you want to show some initial UI before they've submitted. And to pass it in, it really is as simple as just passing an action. So I will call action subscribe to newsletter, .safe so I can handle error cases. And you will also add this little with state wrapper. This is going to make sure all the progressive enhancement info is there. If you don't know what progressive enhancement means, I'm going to show it to you. Don't worry. And you can see as I save this guy, we have all of our types coming in here. We have our success banner if it works out. And also this little field errors right here. Not going to show off too much, but this is a way to get error banners for each part of your form. So if you have really long forms with a bunch of different inputs, and they all might have different little validation cases, you get that object right here. So you can just say, if there's an email message, show that with red text. Music Rex problems, show it with red text. And you can match it up to your UI how you please. It's really nice that that's built in. We'll go down here just to show you all the success cases. So, if it's successful, data comes through, we can say thank you. If it's a conflict, we can show that. If it's any other status code, we'll show something went wrong. Really easy to take what was on the back end, put it up on the front. Now that that's all saved, I can head over to my browser and put in an email. It's already in here. Please don't spam me. And if I put subscribe, you see a little loading indicator, and then looks like you're already subscribed, as I expected. Then we'll type in something really long just to make sure. We'll hit subscribe again, loading state, thank you, check inbox for confirmation. Really nice. Not a lot of work to set it up either. Now, I have one last party trick. This is going to scare all the React devs. Watch this. Disable JavaScript. Ooh. Oh my God. You can do that? You could do that? Well, on slow internet devices, this happens. You're on the subway, you're signing up for a concert, and you're on 1 bar of 3G. When you hit submit, everything explodes. You're like, what happened? We should have a fallback for those people. And luckily, if you use React just with the action pattern, you don't have to do anything. This just works. So if I go ahead and refresh the page and pass that off again, this time with 0 JavaScript, I'll pass something that doesn't exist. You can now see the full page reloads, and down here, again, fully respected. Look at that. Wow, I know. Yes. And if you look at your server logs, it's still there. You still get some nice status codes for those error messages, and it's all gonna be handled with a little bit of middleware. So anywhere that your actions live on any form of your site, you can enhance it, you can use JavaScript, however you wanna hold an action, it will work. So, if that sounds exciting to you, if you want to use it with whatever tech you have right now, definitely check it out. It's available since Astro 4.8, so you can try it out right now on your computers. But we're constantly pushing out bug fixes, and we're ready to get this from experimental to stable, so definitely be ready for that. All right, from here, I'm happy to hand it back over to Fred to introduce the rest of what is going on with Astro.
All right. Ben, thank you. That was awesome. That is one of my favorite new features that's come out. Working with APIs, forms, and available in Astro 4.10. So you can try it out right now wherever Astro is sold near you. It is there. It's awesome. Check it out. It is experimental, so check out the docs. There's some code, config to turn it on. We're hoping to stabilize this later this year. So Ben, thank you for the awesome demo. All right. We are not done yet. We have 2 more awesome talks from across Astro and Astro Docs. So I'm going to throw it over to Matthew, our framework lead, who's going to tell you about everything new and exciting that's coming out in Astro 4.10. Matthew?
All right. Well, yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about Astro 4.10, our latest release of Astro. It's not only our latest release, it's also one of the biggest releases we've ever done. We have a lot of new features in Astro 4.10. I'm going to go over them here in a second, but one of our main focuses on 4.10 is making it possible to use Astro in ways you never could before. Now, I'll explain what that is. So these are the features. You've already heard about actions. I'm not going to go over that. We also have request rewriting. We have a number of build performance improvements. We have type-safe environment variables, and we have a new way to use Astro inside places that it previously couldn't go, and we call that the Container API. But before I go over the features, I want to talk a little bit about some of the design principles we use when we build Astro. So one of the first design principles that we really try to think about, try to make sure that we have a cohesive framework, is we try to make it easy to do the right thing. So you might be familiar with the term a pit of success, and that's what we try to do. We want to make it so that when you build your site with Astro, you kind of fall into winning strategies just by using it. A couple examples here is, of course, islands, which is a way to add JavaScript just when it's needed. We also have view transitions, which is our take on client-side routing. So you can start with an MPA, and then you enhance it and make it client-side routed. Another thing that we often think about is making it so that others can do the difficult thing for you. And this really comes through with our integrations API. With integrations, you have hooks into the entire process that Astro runs. And Starlight's a great example. Starlight gives you an entire documentation framework as an integration. We think that's really powerful. So think about these principles as I go through each of these features. Think about how these come through. First up, we have rewrites. So you might already be familiar with rewrites. If you're familiar with older servers, such as Nginx, Apache, those all had rewrites. Or you might be familiar with other JavaScript frameworks. They also have rewrites. But we did it in a unique way, whereas normally it's a config. It's you have inside your config, here's an old route. I wanted to go to this route instead. We try to make it dynamic, and I'll kind of show what that is. But first, let me tell you a use case here. So let's say you have a product page, and the user goes to a product that doesn't exist. You want to show a 404 page. Well, rewrites enables that sort of thing. The code looks like this. You've probably written this sort of code before yourself. You have some type of function to call your API. Maybe you call the database. You get the slug from the URL. That product doesn't exist. You want to reroute to the user to the 404 page. Now you can just call Astro rewrite, pass in the route that you want to render. In this case, we're going to pass in the slug so you can get a little bit extra contextual information to the user. But it goes more than this. We can actually use this inside of middleware. So an integration could provide like higher level features for you. In this case, we want to provide localized slugs. We want to have the URL in the language of the user, right? But normally you don't have multiple languages in your file system, right? Like you have hello.astro. And if you want the French user to see salut instead, I think I said that right, salut, you could build an integration that does that, right? You just parse out the URL, you get that slug, here we have a little map, and we're going to call rewrite to go to that instead. So like I said, this is something you can imagine integrations providing a nice API to have these sort of localized slugs. So we're really hoping that integrations start to build these types of things. I'm going to take a little break from features for a second and talk about performance. Of course, performance is something that is challenging in a static site generator, especially one built like Astro that enables you to use JavaScript. So it's something that we're constantly having to monitor. It's something we build benchmarks for, and something we're constantly trying to improve. So recently, we've had a number of performance improvements that have had a pretty dramatic effect on static build performance. And I'm going to go over the numbers here in a second, but first, I just want to tell you a little bit about how we actually did this. And we did this not necessarily just by improving Astro, we did it by improving the entire ecosystem, so through a lot of upstream contributions. Now, of course, Astro is built on the shoulders of a huge JavaScript ecosystem, right? So we have projects like Vite, and so we made some improvements there. We also have Shiki, which is a syntax highlighter. We have TinyColor, expressive code. We have Rollup, which is our bundler. And we have the Remark ecosystem, which, if you're not familiar, that is what gives MDX markdown support inside of Astro. So we made improvements to all these projects, and that had a dramatic effect on Astro itself. All right, before I show you the actual numbers, we kind of used the docs site, our Astro docs, as kind of the test project for this, right? Because docs is an example of a great advanced static site. It's a static site with internationalization support. It supports 14 different languages. There's 4,439 total pages. That was like of a couple weeks ago. It's probably even higher now. And so our previous baseline when we started this project was 14 minutes, which doesn't sound that bad, actually, when you think about it. But when you do start to think about it and you think about the workflow for a docs site, the typical workflow is docs is on a GitHub repo. And so if someone wants to change a page, like maybe they fix a typo or they document a new feature, they send a pull request to the docs site. So it has to wait for that to build to get a preview URL. So you're waiting 14 minutes. And then perhaps the reviewer checks that, and maybe they ask for suggestions, so you got to wait another 14 minutes. So it's something that can accumulate over time. So after all these improvements, all these ecosystem improvements, we got the number down to 5 minutes and 30 seconds. So that is a 60% improvement, which is pretty dramatic. And not just Astro that benefited from this. Anybody that uses these other projects get the benefit as well. But there's one more feature that we were able to bring this down even more. So I don't know if you know this, but in Astro 4.0, we released a new experimental feature called Content Collections Cache. And what Content Collections Cache does, it notices that in something like docs or in a blog, most of your content is in your content collections, in the contents folder. And so what we did is we made it so that when you do something like, oh, I'm just fixing a typo, or I'm just adding documentation to this one page, instead of building all the pages, we just build those pages that have changed and use cached versions for the rest of everything. And so on the doc site, when we do that, the number goes even lower. It goes to 1 minute and 9 seconds. So we started off 14 minutes, just making improvements down to 5 minutes, 30 seconds, and now we're down to just a little over a minute when we add some caching on top. So Content Collections Cache is still an experimental feature. It is great for a workflow like docs. It's great for blogs. It is experimental. You can enable it. I recommend you check it out. All right, let's jump back over to features and talk about Astro Env. So Astro Env is our answer for type-safe environment variables. And this is something I'm actually very passionate about. I hope you can tell. So let's define an environment variable. First off, it's an operating system concept, right? What happens when you have environment variables is the operating system, when you execute your program, the operating system takes all your environment variables, things you define in your shell scripts, and it makes a copy of those, attaches it to the process. When you read the environment variables, it gets it from that list. So this is something that's existed basically since the dawn of Unix. But more recently, the Java ecosystem has added more ways to do environment variables. It became a bundler feature. So if you're familiar with Webpack, for example, there's a define plugin. And that's a way to define environment variables directly inside of your config. And of course, we also have .m files. Anybody here use a .m file? It's a great way to do local development. You can have your environment variables inside of your project, and you can point to your staging database or your staging whatever, and read from there. So it's great for that use case. Of course, we also have environment variables inside of our CI, inside of our host, and those all have different UIs, and they have even sometimes different ways to read the environment variables. So environment variables are just inherently a difficult thing. They are hard. I know, like, as a framework developer, they're hard on me, and they're probably hard on you as well. But it goes further than that. Like, we have some environment variables that are just things we need in the client. Some are things we just need in the server. Some of them are secrets. Like, you don't want your Stripe API key to be exposed in your client bundle. You're going to have a really bad day if that happens. Some of them are required. Some of them are not. Some of them are optional. So our answer is the Astro M, a new built-in module inside of Astro. So this gives you type safety, gives you nice autocomplete. You define your variables with a schema, which gets validated with Zod. And it works with any adapter runtime. So there's no more worrying about, oh, Cloudflare reads environment variables this way, Deno another way. There's no process.m shimmy, none of that. So it looks like this. You have a new m property inside of your config. You can define your variables. You can define what type they are. Are they a string? Are they a Boolean, number? And that will get coerced for you. You define what context they run. Are they server? Are they client? You define the access level. Are they public? Are they secret? You can define the default or the required. Full configurability of your variables. And when you go to use them, you import from astroenv/client or server. You get nice autocomplete, all that for you. And in the server version, you have this get secret. So if you want to read something dynamically at runtime, you can do that. Of course, you can only do that on the server. You can't do that in the client. That'd be impossible. So we don't even let you try. All right, last up, we have component containers. So this is container API. I teased this at the beginning of the talk as like one of the most powerful features, but it's also one of the most upvoted RFCs we've ever had. This is something people have been asking for in Astro since we started the project. And I'll go over some of the use cases, and you can see why that is. But first off, what this is it's just a low-level rendering API. It's a low-level API that you can render Astro components. So some use cases here. Anybody here a Rails or PHP developer? Python? No, I guess not. Well, whatever. You're not going to like the demo. Yeah, so yeah, you can use Astro inside of Rails, PHP. People have asked for this because Astro is really nice to add JavaScript, right? You can just add your client directives. Now you get JavaScript for free. You could also use it to do full text rendering inside of RSS feeds. Just get your collection, loop over that collection, render that content component, inject that inside of your RSS. You can also do testing. We've always had support for V-tests inside of Astro for quite a long time. Now you can actually test those components. You can import your card, create a container, render that to string, do any assertions you need. So that is a container API. I'm going to give you a demo that you're going to love. But first, 4.10, you can upgrade existing projects, npx add astro.js/upgrade, or for new projects, do npm create astro at latest like normal. So next, I'm going to do a little demo. So we have a PHP app, and if you could guess, I am not a PHP expert, and I can tell none of you are either, so no one's going to know any the wiser that I did this a good way or not. But what I do know is that, so this is just a nice little PHP app, mostly HTML. I know that PHP has this function called pass-through. And with pass-through, what you can do is you can execute an external command, and it will just kind of inject anything that command logs right here. So basically what we want to do is we run our script. That script is going to log some HTML, and it's going to happen right here. So PHP developers are laughing right now. There's probably a much better way to do this. It's more efficient. But this does work, so this is what I'm going to demo. So I have an Astro project inside of my PHP project. This is a low-level API, as I said. Here's the container code. I'll come back to this in a second. First, I want to show you kind of how I decided to organize this. I have this all.ts file, which I export all the components that I want to use. Like, for example, I have this React wrapper component, and inside of that, we're rendering a counter component. Who would have thought? You're pretty much required to do counter components in demo, so that's what I did. So I have this counter component, which is just a normal React counter component using Tailwind. And I have this render.mgs script. I create my container. I'm passing some magic config stuff. I have this resolve function, for example. This is allowing me to resolve like where client scripts are loaded from because I have them in a special place in my project. Then I have this components, which has my React wrapper component on it. I can render that to string. I console.log it. Boom, it is magically inside. Which way do I go? This way. It's magically inside of my PHP app. So this is a PHP app, and I got myself a little island. And look at that, a working counter. That's the most beautiful thing in the world. And if I open up the inspector here, we can see, hopefully that is large enough. Let me just bump that up. We have an Astro Island, which I don't know if you ever inspected the HTML of Astro, but you get these little Astro Islands. So there you go. You got yourself PHP inside of Astro. So let me just, yeah, that is it. Let's go back to the slides now. Check out Astro 4.10. Thanks, everybody. You can keep going. No, okay. I want to welcome to the stage now Sarah, who's going to tell you about what's going on in Docs. Let's go, Sarah.
Thank you, Matthew. At Astro, we are especially proud of our commitment to documentation. Astro Docs doesn't just help you find your way around Astro. Astro Docs has been a great way into Astro for many of our community contributors. Astro Docs is an Astro website about building Astro websites. There is so much involved in maintaining a documentation website. So whatever your skills, your interests, bring it. We can use it. And so many of you already have. I'm going to tear up. We are so proud of everything that's gone into Astro Docs, everything that's been contributed to Astro Docs, and everything that has come out of Astro Docs. But perhaps we're most proud to be able to help you make your own docs with Starlight. That deserves applause. And I'm pleased to share with you tonight the latest Starlight updates. We and our amazing community have built stuff for you. So let's take a look. Starlight takes what we've learned about building and maintaining a docs project and puts it all together in one ready-to-go package so that you can't make a bad docs site, while at the same time lets you customize and gives you the flexibility to have a site that's truly your own. Anyone should be able to just add Markdown and have a helpful docs site that just works on older devices, on slower connections, with assistive technology for your global audience. There's no getting around the fact that all computing is resource intensive, but Starlight was built to be eco-friendly first, with intentional design decisions to reduce page weight and power consumption. We're proud of our defaults, and we've spent the last little while building even more built-in features and components that you can use that are essential to a great docs site. And we know this because they're essential to our docs site. So let's look at 4 components that our community has built. Present your folder structure or highlight an individual file with our file tree component that just wraps an unordered Markdown list. File icons, contextual notes, and interactive collapsing folders display by default. The new sync key property in our tabs component allows your readers to choose once their operating system or package manager and see their choice reflected throughout the page as they read. Use our community-submitted badge component to display small pieces of information like status or labels. 4 included variants, 3 text sizes, and if you need some more customization, just pass CSS in an object. Help your readers stay focused, working through your guides and tutorials with clear instructions that are easy to find and follow. If you've already got an ordered Markdown list, you're good to go. Just wrap it in our steps component. No change to your existing content required. Now, in addition to bringing you these essential docs components, we've also been hard at work to bring you the most complete I18N docs solution. With translated UI strings and now I18N Next API support, no other docs site lets you just say which languages you're using and immediately have your entire site infrastructure in place, translated, just waiting for your content. Our commitment to internationalization is one of the reasons that Starlight is used around the globe. And to get it right, our community of contributors, representing 16 officially supported languages, has been building with us from the beginning the entire time, ensuring that Starlight works for everyone. And we build Starlight not just in public and out in the open, but on the air. Talking and Docking is your chance to join a weekly call with Astro core maintainers as we work on Astro Docs and Starlight. We get our work done, and you get to participate, often by all jumping into a shared online code workspace together. So that steps component Over a series of weekly calls, our community built that, taking it from an idea to implementation, to polish and review, to updating Astro's own docs. But no matter how you get started contributing to Astro, and you will, right? Every contribution of every kind to the Astro ecosystem enriches the project and all of us in it. Whether you're filing bug reports, translating UI strings, fixing a typo, adding a test, or participating in roadmap discussions, building your own themes and integrations, answering support questions. I've got so many of these, writing blog posts and tutorials. This keeps going. Live streaming demos, attending a community call, telling a friend about Astro, or running Create Astro and building a website without anybody knowing at all, except Houston. You are a valuable member of our community, and your contribution helps. It might honestly have been easier to make a slide that listed the things that do not contribute to Astro, because if you use Astro, you make Astro better. Starlight wouldn't have gotten this far without you, and we have even bigger plans for the future, so we're gonna need you. Hop in. This thing can fit so many community contributors.
Hey everyone, my name is Alex.
Hi, my name is Kevin.
Hey Astro crew, this is Ava.
Hey guys, how we doing? Name is Jacob, or Jumper you may or may not know me as.
Hi everyone, it's Arisa from Storyblog.
Hello everybody, my name is Anthony Faris.
Hey everyone, Paul Valladares here, or better known as Dreyfus.
I came to the Astro Discord, I think, to answer some questions about development, and I found such a really nice community here of folks who are super supportive, super encouraging. Always cool to see what people are building with Astro.
I'd seen a left curly brace that wasn't properly encoded, and so I asked if there was any easy fix to this. And if you know, you know. It wasn't very easy, but everyone was super friendly in this first interaction, so I decided to stick around because it was easy to ask questions regarding Astro development too.
I just fell in love with it. I love the community. I love the tool of what you guys are doing.
Astro gets community right. They've created an onboarding experience that's welcoming to everyone regardless of their expertise. It's about making everyone feel like they can contribute, learn, and grow.
My first PR was a broken link. It was very, very small. You know, I started from fixing one line, then a couple lines, then a sentence, then a section, then a page. So yeah, I didn't have a lot of experience when I started to contribute. Astro was probably one of the first repos that I made a PR.
And I started to contribute to localize the docs they have. They have a dedicated docs team, and in there I was able to get a lot of help.
I just went into the code, I started reading it, and I just went for it. I opened my first PR, and then I did it more and more, and the Astro community was so welcoming, so nice to me.
And as I stuck around here longer, I noticed that there were some folks who were newer to web development who were, having questions about how to do certain things in Astro, but also just like in JavaScript or with the web.
I was asking things about web design or Astro or whatever.
And so I started replying to some of their support questions as I was working on my own tasks.
And I was like, oh, I can answer that, and I can answer that as well. I can answer that, and then eventually I just sort of, just spent more and more time on the Discord, talking to people and helping people out and stuff.
Being part of the Astro community transformed me. It wasn't just about developing my technical skills. It was about growing as a person, learning to communicate, learning to collaborate, to be part of something bigger.
And if you want to start your own open source journey, don't feel overwhelmed. We would love to have you around. There are endless possibilities.
all of the people out there can definitely contribute to Astro, whether it's just by triaging issues, seeing if this issue is actually reproducible, or let's say creating a PR, whether it's a quick fix or like take on low-hanging fruit so that the core team can focus on building the mighty Astro.
Translation, ticket triage, community support, request for comments, experimental features, bug fixing.
So yeah, if you like to contribute, like I did, yeah, it's highly recommended. You get to learn tons of things.
I just want to say to anyone that's having like second thoughts, and just go for it. Sometimes the first step is the hardest, but it could be the beginning of an amazing journey.
Whatever you enjoy is the right thing for you to do. And we are happy you are around our community.
It's a community that uplifts, educates, and inspires.
The Astro community has continued to be a place that I enjoy spending time, enjoy sharing projects that I'm working on, enjoy seeing what other people are working on. It's a place that I really like being and excited to see what's to come with Astro.
To everyone out there, remember that your contributions matter. You can make a difference. So join us, grow with us, and let's build something amazing together.
Just go for it.
Oh my God, I love that video. Give it up for all those contributors. Can you give it up one more time for Sarah, our amazing speaker? Quick show of hands, just I'm curious. Has anyone here in the audience contributed to Astro before? Okay, we got some plants, they don't count. Anyone contributed to open source at all? Any project whatsoever? A bug fix, a PR? Yes, there you go. Give it up for you all as well, just amazing. Open source software is powered by contributions like that, so it's just incredible that you all are doing that and keeping these projects alive. So thank you. Thank you. All right, let's get to the final talk, the future of Astro. Earlier Matthew shared a couple of the design principles that he loves, and one of my favorite ones is actually from the earliest days of this project, this idea of pushing the web forward. That Astro isn't just another framework, but we're actually pushing the web forward. We're challenging best practices and norms and the ways that people think websites should be built. To go back to this chart, this idea that Astro's performance improvements, they aren't just a thing that happened. They're something that we really tried hard to get to, that we really worked hard to think about what is a website and how should one be built, and how could you architect one for better performance. So this is no accident to see this up here. Island architecture was the name of the big innovation that we kind of came up with in 2021. This idea of a first-of-its-kind architecture built around partial hydration. So instead of shipping a JavaScript application, SPA, powerful but not very performant, Astro kind of flipped that architecture and instead focused on shipping server-rendered HTML, stripping away all the JavaScript, but then leaving you with these islands of interactivity. In 2022, we did it again with content collections. So this idea of what if there's a first-party primitive inside of Astro for working with content, your Markdown, your MDX, type-safe, validated, schema-defined, first-party content for the framework that's built for content. Easy. And then last, but not least, by a long shot, we partnered with the Google Chrome team to build the first ever API built around view transitions. The idea of browser-native app-like transitions without a bunch of JavaScript, without a bunch of coding. First-party in Astro to make your website feel like an app. Now, a new year, what should we work on? Well, excited to announce we're entering the metaverse, baby. No, I'm just kidding. But I do want to present our vision for the future of Astro. And really, when I think about this, I think about the future of all content-focused websites. How can we push the web forward? And the way I want to do that is by showing off 3 innovations that we're going to be working on this year, building on those same exact 3 things I just shared off, these foundational pieces of Astro. We want to push each of these forward this year. And so I'm going to show off some cool stuff around islands, content collections, and view transitions. Now, a lot of this is early, it's still exploration, but I'm really excited to show this off because I think it's a good hint at where we're headed, along with a couple of demos as well. So let's start with view transitions. Y'all might know this demo. It was making the rounds on Twitter a while ago. You might think this is Spotify. You might think it's a big, heavy application, Electron, JavaScript, SPA. In reality, this is a clone of Spotify built with Astro using almost no JavaScript. This is powered by browser animations using the new View Transition API. So native browser support, not a bunch of JavaScript, powered by the browser, which means we don't have to do so much work, you don't have to do so much work. All those animations, not a single line of JavaScript written by the developer, not even a single line of CSS. We give you these directives to wipe and fade and morph. You annotate your HTML with them, and you get those animations automatically. Again, not a heavy lift for your code or for the browser. And we built these in a way that would be future-proof. So could we build APIs that would grow into the future as the spec evolved, as more features were announced? But there's also backwards compatible, because a future spec, browsers, they move slow, they're powerful, but it takes years for some of these things to come along. And so this idea of backwards compatibility built into the framework, best practices built in the framework, and build it in a way that would be future-proof for the future of all these features and how the browsers would continue to evolve, minimizing the changes that you would need. Now, to do that, to hit that kind of perfect balance, we had to get a little creative. We ended up injecting a SPA router into your site to get that backwards compatibility, which, if you know anything about Astro, that's like the last thing we would ever do. Our whole thing is about not injecting routers, not taking over from the browser. And here we are literally taking over for the browser, saying we can do it better, when in fact, it's anything but. It's really difficult to do this well. So why would we do this, right? Why would we ever dip our toes in this evil, dark pool of routing? Ugh. The reason was that we wanted to take a bet on where browsers were going, and a bet that one day, in the far future, the browser would ship the full spec, keep iterating, and get to a place where you'd already have the APIs and the code in place. You could remove this polyfill, this backwards compatible polyfill, and your entire site would continue to work now browser native, no JavaScript. This was our bet that one day in the future, that would happen. Excited to announce that that day is today, because zero JavaScript view transitions are here in Chrome, they're coming in Edge, and you can use them in Astro with zero changes. One quick line of change, that's all you need to use in Astro. Zero JavaScript. Super, super cool. Native browser stuff. I could talk about it more, but instead I really want to show you what we're talking about, because it is so cool to see how simple this is and how powerful it is over here on the demo. Now, let's pull this up. There we go. Beautiful. If you've ever used our view transition support, you'll notice this component here. This is how you enable our backwards compatibility with older browsers. And if I go over here, hopefully this is the right one. Yes. You can see this demo actually running, the exact same one I showed. I just cloned it and tried it out. You can see these navigations happening. They feel native. They feel like an app. And you'll see here in the network panel, you'll see us taking over that routing, right? This is not really refreshing the page. It's all one page, all one experience, and we're fetching these pages using our router. Now, what the browsers are shipping is this idea of actually full page navigation. So you literally click a link, you'd be used to a full page wipe, a full page rebuild. But what the browser's doing is actually navigating the before and the after and then morphing it for you. So it acts like a full page, but in reality, it's all looking like an app. So let's show you how easy this is to do. You have your view transitions. We're going to wipe that. Let's quickly go back and see what happened. Everything's gone. What happened? Where'd it go? It's gone. Now, the browsers aren't just going to make every app transform. That would be crazy. So instead, there's a way to opt in, which is using CSS. It's a style tag. I'm just going to write that out. And an @ rule. So we have @ view transition. This is the new rule. And we're going to give this something which is animation. No, what is it? Oh my God, I'm blanking. It's navigation equals auto. This is a native, look at that. Native API, native CSS rule that the browsers are going to understand. And if it doesn't understand it, you're going to notice it right away. Let's see. All right, I'm going to click this. Look at that. Nothing in the network panel. I can move around this thing beautifully. This is the browser morphing these elements along the page. Nothing is being fetched. Every time you're hitting a new one, here I can go, I'll show you. Look at that. You're going to see this network panel go crazy because it's actually hitting a new page. Things are cached, it's loading quickly, and the browser is diffing between the two. This is one of the coolest things, I think, to come out of Chrome, and out of the spec process in a long time. Now, depending on when you're watching this, early June for Chrome, the next week for Edge, more browsers coming soon. You saw how easy that was to turn off and then turn on. It's a one-line change, so your app code remains exactly the same, and you can migrate on your own time. So if you're happy and you want to wait for the browsers to settle a bit, that's fine. If you want the bleeding edge, that's also fine. This is something that you can adopt whenever you're ready, and it's a one-line change. So that's view transitions. Let's talk about content quickly, because this is one of my favorite things about Astro, this content story. If you've ever used content collections, a bit of this was previewed earlier. It's a really simple API for grabbing full collections, single entries. It's all type safe. You start typing this out, you're going to get those autocompletes. It's really powerful for managing your markdown. Type safe, schema validated. You miss a front matter property, don't worry, we got you. It's all there, and your content lives in the directory. So you can see that source content directory. You've got your blog content, your markdown, maybe some JSON, data files. You manage it all in your repo, and you get that beautiful experience of just really quickly querying and loading what you need. Now, as we've grown, we're seeing a lot of people really push the limits of this, and a couple of key use cases keep coming up. People have content that lives all over the place. So maybe it doesn't live in a nice way that you can just migrate it into this code base. Maybe you have a different folder structure. Maybe you have internationalization that you need to worry about managing full copies of different versions and variants. Or maybe you have remote data. Part of the trade-off and part of the great developer experience is this enforced folder structure, which means you don't have a lot of flexibility. And so that's why I'm excited to announce that one of the things that we're working on this year is a Content Collections 2.0, something that lets you load your data from anywhere. So your local MDX, instead of giving you that enforced content structure, you can put it wherever you want. Put it in a content folder, put it in a different folder somewhere else entirely. It's totally up to you. We'll still do all that great globbing, validation, type safety, everything you've come to expect, but now the full flexibility to move that wherever you want. Maybe you have a big file that's full of 1 million different lines of data. You don't want to break that up into individual files. I totally get it. You could put a single file and we'll still break that apart for you. You could load this from a remote data source. This could live entirely off of your code base. This could live on Storyblock, a great CMS, or anywhere really, an API. Not only would this be something you could fetch from, but we can make it pluggable. We can put these into packages and integrations, so you can fetch data from anywhere around the internet into your project. And if all that is still not enough, you can just code it all yourself. We don't even care. Build whatever you want. This is totally, totally free for you to build on top of to your heart's content. So this is a really big deal for us because we're breaking out of the local content store. We're breaking out of the you must follow these rules. We're letting you, the developer, figure out where you want to pull your data from, and we're still going to give you that great experience. Cached inside your content layer, you can fetch, rebuild. Every time you change a file, it's already there in the content layer. There's plenty more to show around how we might query, how we might scale this up to millions of content entries. Again, Glauber, you're getting all the shout-outs, but from the Terso team, SQLite has been brought up a couple times. How could we actually power this with something that could scale into millions of content posts? There's some really cool stuff. This is still stage 1. There's an RFC available for you to check out. We're exploring this year, and I can't wait to see what you all build as we start to ship these APIs. So that's content collections. The last thing I have to show is something very, very special for island architecture. This is the idea of client islands, right? This is stuff we've been doing since day one. This is stripping away the JavaScript and shipping static HTML that's fast and performant, but still giving you these islands of interactivity, these components of UI that are interactive on the client, hydrated individually, so you're not paying the full weight of the page just where you need it. This has been incredibly, incredibly popular for content sites because it's performant, helps you with your SEO, your conversion rates, but it's a bit of an interesting kind of trade-off, right? You basically have this pick. What if I want static HTML? It's fast and easy, but it's static, right? You can't really do much of it personalized. It's static. And maybe you have your client components interactive, but now you're shipping JavaScript to the client for whatever that interactivity is. So there's these two really powerful primitives, but they're kind of on opposite sides of the spectrum, right? What if you want that dynamic content, but you don't really want to ship a bunch of JavaScript to get it? So that's why I'm excited to announce server islands are being explored. The idea of shipping server-generated content to the page, but keeping the whole thing statically cached, statically built, globally cached on a CDN. You're getting this app shell, and it's really easy to use. This is just all you need to do to take something like a user button, which you might be familiar with as that little avatar in the top right on Google. That's personalized, right? That's your content. That's your face showing up. You add that server defer, and you'll be able to pull in that remote personalized data without forcing your entire page to be server rendered. So you still get a static site, and then dynamically that page is going to go and pull that data after the page is already loaded on your screen and fetch that personalized content. So you get static pages, present the shell, globally cached, works everywhere, works on any CDN. This is not proprietary. This can run anywhere. And if you have that personalized UI, that expensive thing, you're culminating reviews or star votes, whatever it is on your site that you're trying to display, it can work performantly without shipping JavaScript to the client. So again, stage one, this is an early RFC that we're exploring alongside our community, but it represents one of the biggest shifts in our architecture since the early V1 days. If you've been following the React community, they've been going for almost a decade now working about suspense, streaming, and partial pre-rendering. These are really cool technologies, and we've been learning a lot from them, but we're really excited to present what we think this future architecture could look like. This is running on any CDN. It's making trade-offs for you that really work for content sites. So again, we're optimizing for the use case that we love, which is content sites that run anywhere. Now again, let me show this off because this is really cool to see in action. I'm going to take that exact same demo you saw with Spotify, and you saw I mentioned that we have that one component that's on the client. This one little good night is doing a lot of heavy lifting. This is actually a Svelte component. We've shipped all of Svelte just to run this one little UI. It's cool, but we don't really need to be interactive. It's just saying good night, putting us to bed. We don't need that to be interactive. We just want the content to be dynamic. We don't want to cache that saying good night. You wake up tomorrow morning, it still says good night. So what would this look like? Well, we already played around with this. We're going to also go down and find that component, which is on your page. And it's this greeting title. That's what's powering the good night message. And I forgot to undo. This is what it did look like, client visible. So this is actually telling Astro to go and ship this as an island, load on visibility, and then become interactive as soon as possible. We're gonna delete this. We don't want it to be interactive. We want it to be dynamic, but we don't want it to be a client island. We don't want Svelte to have to ship just for that. And instead, we're going to do a little bit of magic here and hit server defer. This is telling Astro, hey, put something here that's a placeholder that you can define, and then we're gonna actually go and after the page loads, fetch this dynamically. So it's not gonna block the page. If it's a static site, you can still ship it statically behind a CDN. But if you go here, we're gonna see this load and without giving it away, 0 JavaScript on the client. Now I've added a fake delay here, so just to mimic something that takes a little while, something more expensive, it's not gonna add seconds to your page load. It's just gonna take this little component, give it a little delay, and it's gonna fade in naturally, okay? If all goes well, this will work. Drum roll, please, refresh. Nothing there, fake delay, loads in. And no JavaScript, look at that. Not a single JavaScript file. Dynamic content without a lot of JavaScript. There's a little inline script that we've injected onto the HTML page to do this, but we're talking, very little code, and it's inline, so it's not a separate file. This is 0 JavaScript requests in your network console. You can do this all day. Look, boop, fade in, very cool. Let me show one more example to show what we're talking about here. You've got here some personalized content. This is a fake blog post I grabbed from Tailwind, shout out to Tailwind. And my beautiful face in the top right. Now, again, personalized content, really hard to do. Can't do it with a static site, can't do it with a CDN. In a traditional server environment, this is going to force that entire thing through a data center. So if you're coming in from internationally, that request is going all the way to that root data center to get that dynamic server rendering just for that little face, barely anything. And again, you could have used a client component, but again, you're building a client component. You're shipping JavaScript. You're building an API for it to talk about, for it to talk to. This is all the kind of current trade-offs. And this new system, if we refresh this page, same fake delay, loads right in. Personalized content statically cached. You can see no tricks here. This is running on Vercel. This is loading with 0 JavaScript on the client, fetching that and hydrating it after the fact. Personalized content, static page. It's beautiful. It's a thing of beauty. I'm really excited for us to keep exploring this because it represents this full shift away. And if we could go back to the slides. Some really powerful technology. Again, we care about content sites, so Core Web Vitals is core for this technology. If you compare this to anything else right now that exists, this is gonna give you really fast, largest contentful paint, one of the 3 Core Web Vitals. So by statically caching your page, you're getting the majority of it to the user as quickly as possible. This is gonna take that deferred item, that little UI, and that's not gonna impact your Core Web Vitals. That's actually, the web prefers it, user prefers it if that streams in after. So you're giving a faster Core Web Vital experience, optimizing for what we define as a performance site, and you're getting that global distribution. So if you're across the world, that thing's gonna load much faster than if it's running in a data center that you need to talk to. So super fast performance, built for Core Web Vitals, works with any infra, whatever host, wherever you wanna host this, it can run anywhere. And the best of all, it builds on existing primitives. So islands, right? This is not a new thing. Thinking of your page as a collection composed components. This is building on those same concepts that we've already been shipping for 3 years now. So it totally aligned with where we've been going and represents a huge, huge step forward for the concept of island architecture. So this is the future of Astro. This is the stuff that we are going to be working on this year that I'm so excited about. 0 JavaScript view transitions. It's kind of a trick. It's already here. It's coming, that one's an easy. Check that box. Content collections and server islands. These are things we're going to be working on and building into Astro as we explore the future of Astro. So thank you all for hearing this. It's really exciting to be building on this and working with you all, and thank you so much for listening. Thank you.